third thing, I will not explain how the CHUV works. I think this is why we're here, because it has some an intimidating organizational structure. So if you're wondering where we are located today, Direction Innovation Recherche Clinique is somewhere there. It's a part of the general direction of the CHUV, and it transfers entity to serve the different departments. So within this direction, the head is of course Professor Odo. We will talk about the entities that are highlighted here on this slide, but you have other entities present here. I just want to point out also the unit for health economics that is very important for us, because they do the health economic assessments when the CHUV decides to implement new technologies that come with a certain cost that are not reimbursed. So they do the evaluation and the reports on that. The missions are to support clinical research at the CHUV. We have a data science and biomedical informatics unit that support this kind of research in the institution. We support clinical innovation, health economics, and also post-grad training for our medical students and medical professionals. You can find more information on this on the website, so feel free to get there. You have also the contact details there, so you can easily get in touch with us. But I want to dive deeper now into the units that I mentioned. We start out with the innovation office. This is what I'm concerned with. We have two kinds of missions. One is more internally, kind of supporting our internal innovators, early stage innovation, helping them with their ideas, leading them through the different processes that we have internally, putting them in contact with all the expertise we have in-house. Lots of people have done interesting stuff, who've been there, done it, who know how it works. But even for our colleagues, it's difficult to navigate the meanders of CHUV and to find the right person, so we help them out with that. And to the external world, we are kind of the open door to foster their collaborations, to put people into contact. So if you guys need to contact somebody with machine, if you don't know which door to knock, you can give me a shout and I'll see what I can do to find the right person. The objective is, of course, to create added value for our patients and our stakeholders through clinical innovation. The entity is supported by a committee for clinical innovation, which consists of different experts in various sectors, of course, in the medical, but also in the nursing field, health economics, tech transfer, and these kind of things. What do we mean when we speak of clinical innovation? We mainly support things that come out of the field of that are in the field of medical devices, but also in relation to data science and AI. Sorry, sometimes the live translation gets me a bit slow down. So what we can offer is certain methodologies in innovation. We help with networking, as I said before. We do some simple training, seminars that we call Innovation in Action. And finally, also we can orient people to different financing sources. So there's a lot going on within our directorate. There's certain units that help innovators. Elsewhere in the CHUV, we have also legal support. We have a grant office. And we'll speak about the Center for Clinical Research, which is partly under the Directorate of Innovation. And you'll see what the PACT is doing for our innovators who want to create spin-offs. And for those, there are lots of other support opportunities in the ecosystem. This slide is perfect, certainly not exhaustive. These entities help to find housing, worker spaces, and access to finance. So from the inside out, I think we have a lot of opportunities to help people, but what we hear today, what we are interested in is more or less the other way around. Once you are on the business planet, how do you get in touch with the people here? And we get all sorts of requests. People want to come, of course, for just consulting, getting first impression on how a new technology could be integrated in medical practice, what it needs to be adopted by the medical professionals. That can sometimes go further to collaborations, which can take on the form of services, research collaborations, R&D, and of course, clinical trials. What we don't do is helping with the sales of your products. There are other channels that you can use for that. And another thing that we don't like to do really is just opening our databases, our clinical data for training of algorithms. You can do that in the framework of a research collaboration, but simple access to data training is not worth it. It's in our philosophy. So now the secret recipe now to get the attention of our experts is, of course, I don't need to tell you, their career depends on their publications, so the scientific interest is important. Then, as I said, we are always aiming for clinical benefit. That could be benefit for patients, for the hospital and its entirety, or for the medical professionals. The third thing is people are short on time, short on resources. So if you have access to certain resources, of course, it can be money, in your case, often through industries. It can be manpower or womanpower, or it can be access to certain tools, be they digital or data sets or analysis machines, whatever you have that could raise some interest with the researchers. So this would be the sweet spot. Most startups don't tick all the boxes, so usually we discuss and see how we can get things done. So this will be everything from my side, so feel free to give me a shout. You can contact me via the website of the CHUV, or you go to the innovation manual, you have a contact there. So I'm happy to discuss what we can do. Then I was asked to present a few examples of what we can do, what is going on, and we are in the process of creating a Center for Surgical Engineering. So these are the slides of Professor Simon, can't be with us either, and just a few examples of what they are currently doing. There is a severe conditions. Some babies are born with a condition that's called tracheomalacia. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly.
Sorry, maybe if you guys can move further at the back, if you have more people still coming and sit on the table. And I guess maybe we could open a small window.
Okay. Technically challenged with power, I'm sorry. So this condition leads to difficulties because the trachea is not solid enough and it collapses during the breathing process. It's like a pipe. And in collaboration with EPFL, they have on explanted trachea experimented with a biocompatible hydrogel that stabilizes the trachea. And I think that is a very interesting approach to test in the clinic later on to see whether this condition can be managed better than with current means. There are also technologies that come out of the EPFL that are tested later on at the CHUV. This is a post-marketing testing of the surgical robot Dexter, developed by the startup Distal Motion. And you see the surgeon here who is using the robot to do an intervention on a patient.
No.
The third example. And the diversion of an existing tool. This is the Da Vinci robot, and in collaboration with Intuitive Surgical, the surgeons have used it to do a surgery on the trachea, on the laryngeal system. The robot allows a different access path for this surgery, and the first data, which are not yet published, on 16 patients, show that these patients recover much more quickly. Within 3 months, we are already able to swallow solid food. So these are things that are possible between engineering solutions and the medical team. The center is initiated by the Department of Surgery and the Engineering School and supported by the Director of Innovation and Clinical Research. Its aims are, or its main axes are in terms of operating procedures to preserve and to preserve function, rehabilitate the patient's functions, do precision surgery, do micro-invasive procedures, and of course, economic aspects are also part of the axis. There are numerous groups and professors already collaborating and interested in joining this center. So if you are in one of these spaces, it might be interesting to get in touch with them to see whether something can be done. The center is still a work in progress. It's not official yet, but the collaborations are already ongoing with financing from the Swiss National Science Foundation or InnoSwiss tools. So there's a lot of interesting stuff ongoing. It will be a classical structure with a steering committee with 2 directors. So we hope that this will be operational during the next year, depending on validation by our respective management, EPFL and CHUV. So that would be it for the first part. I would then pass the word on to my colleague Alberto Schena, who is himself a former startup, joined the tech transfer office, I think 2.5 years ago, if I'm right. And if you want to introduce you further, please.
The question before we move on, will you share with us slides with you?
We can share the slides, yes.
Right.
Well, if you have questions to this part, we can take a question about to clarify things, but we keep some the discussions maybe for the end. Is there anything that is not clear at this stage? Please.
Yes, I remember you saying when you're looking for external collaborations, you don't really like to do data sharing, and can you give us a couple of reasons why that would be the case?
I think for us strategically, it's not of interest just to open the data and let people develop their tools on the data. When these data are most of the time clinical data that we generate in day-to-day losing English patient services. And what we are keen on, and you will hear more about that later, is having collaborations in that area. So it's not that we don't share data, it's not just pure access to data that is covered. So
I mean, I would maybe add that it's not that we don't want to share data, but you cannot just share data. Even if we wanted to, we cannot, so there are things we have to follow, protocols, rules. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're very open to collaborations.
I can also add something on that. Patients give their authorization to use their data for research purposes, so not for developing during commercial tools. That's why we decided maybe I can start. I'm the director of the tech transfer office of the CHUV and the patient engineer at University of Lausanne and here in the hospital of Lausanne. As Stefan mentioned, I started 2.5 years ago. I was before working for startups like you. So actually, my startup was actually based here in the GFL Innovation Park, Scientics, for medical devices in visual diagnostics. And yeah, then I worked for other companies in Geneva as CTO, and then I joined 3.5 years ago at PACT. What do we do at PACT? At PACT, we take care of the valorization of the research results of the two institutions by covering the intellectual property through patenting, and then we provide licenses to startups like yours or spin-offs from the two institutions, or to large companies that would like to use the technology developed by CHUV for their own activities and to bring to the patient the discoveries. And then we also deal with all the contracts with the external partners. So if you want to do a collaboration with the CHUV, you have to go through our service for negotiating the contract. And then we finance also startup and innovation projects from the two institutions. So I will give you a brief introduction over the first and the third point, and then I will concentrate more on the second point, the most interesting for you. So this is the PACT team. We have 4 licensing managers that take care of, as I mentioned, filing the patents, giving licenses to outside companies, and then also they take care of financing the spin-off projects and other innovative projects, and the legal counsels, 5 people that are working for drafting and negotiating the contracts with somebody like you that would like to collaborate with the CHUV. So in patent and licenses, of course, the valorization process means that we go from an invention to a product or a service. The objective is really bringing the knowledge that is developed in the academic institution to the real world, to the actual patient, for the benefit of the society, of the environment, for the patient. And we deal with the patent filing and prosecution and provide licensing to corporate and startups. And we finance innovation through 3 different grant opportunities for our researchers. So it's not dedicated to the outside, just to our researchers from Lingen and from CHUV. We finance startup projects, and they do also here at GFL with a grant of 100,000 Swiss francs to be used in the first year of development of the spin-off project. Here is some people that got these finance in the past. InnoStep, for projects that were patented by institution, provide up to 40,000 Swiss francs for a proof of concept. And the most recent one in the digital, we provide up to 40,000 Swiss francs for translating a research software into an actual product. Here are some success stories. You may know about Hyatt Therapeutics. It was really in the media a couple of weeks ago because they signed a licensing deal with Eli Lilly for 1 billion. So it's actually a big success story. It was the top industry startup in 2003. Lymphatic Medtech is actually a collaboration between CHUV and GFL. They recently got a FDA breakthrough device designation, and they are currently raising a lot of millions right now to do the clinical development. Celexis is a known story. They did an exit in 2017, but I like to put it here because last year it got the Biohazard 13-day prize, 2023. Atreon is a project led by the Professor Thomas Huglet that combines AI and other digital tools for rheumatology purposes, and they got the first InnoDigital grant this year. And moreover, they got 800K in a Swiss project very recently. So, and they are very advanced. They're really applying to their patients, and will most likely get to the market very quickly. Procarium is another story. There is no startup there. It's a company based in the UK. They got the license, and now they just got this year the first dosing of the first patient. So it's an example of out licensing. We also organize events. This year, we have celebrated the 10th anniversary of our grant program, sorry. And next year, it will be the 25th anniversary of PACT. So we plan to also have a celebration event. We have still to decide where and when, but say the date, that's in the purple. And now we come to what is probably for you the most interesting part, we also negotiate all the contracts with external partners, including startups. For example, if you want to collaborate, you have to put in place a contract. We do the contract drafting. Actually, we have two services at CHUV that do the contract drafting. One is us, in fact. The second one is the AFG, Affaires Juridiques from the CHUV. And then I will try to explain when we are concerned and they are concerned. This is for research collaboration, but also for transfer of material, information, data, non-disclosure agreement, all type of agreement with the CHUV. In the respect of the CHUV directives, but also to preserve the valorization potential of whatever it is. So, as I mentioned, there are two competence services. Us, the fact, is competent for the preclinical collaborations, for all the IP and valorization clauses, even in the other contracts that I will describe below, and for the what is called the investigator-initiated studies, are studies that are led by the CHUV, but in which a third party, like an external party, contributes either with material, with their own molecule, with their own machine that they want to test in the context of this clinical study. While the AFG is responsible for almost all clinical studies, apart from investigator-initiated studies, and for data protection. We have also a DPO that is linked to the AFG. And so the two cantonal laws is the LRH, the law on the research on human beings, and the LPD, protection of the data, like personal data. But don't worry about that. There are two structures, but we are really strongly collaborating. So whenever there is a contract that is related to the other unit, we discuss it, we can send it to the correct service. So that's why in the next slide, I write to send it to us, and then we will take care in case we send it to the other unit. So I also would like to explain you what is the ideal workflow for a collaboration concerning the contracts with the CHUV. First of all, you should sign an NDA with the research group that is working at CHUV. Good news is that we have a template on our website. There is, I wanted to make actually the QR code, but I didn't have time, so I keep the old link there. But you can just download it easily from our website, and this one doesn't need negotiation. So if the clauses that are very standard are fine for you, you just sign it. The other person on the CHUV side sign it, and you don't need to get a legal review. So no time, you can start to discuss. Then you meet with your research partner at CHUV and you agree on the project plan. For example, if you want to put in place a collaboration, service, transfer of material data, etc. Following that, I also want to remind, it's not concerning you, but it's concerning the researcher at the CHUV, but I still want to mention it to you. The researcher needs to receive a financial approval by his or her responsible for the financials. So there is an intermediate step. And if, you want to facilitate the work of the researcher, because sometimes they are not aware of themselves of internal approvals, just tell him or her that he also needs a financial approval and take care that he gets it in order to facilitate the future steps. And then the researcher, not you, but the researcher needs to send the project plan to this address, paclegal@chuv.ch, and we will take care in case to share it with the AFG if needed. And following that, the internal procedures that a legal counsel, either from the PAC or from the AFG, will be in charge of negotiating the contract with you. And all the matters concerning the IP, PAC will be involved. So even if it's a clinical trial, but there are some debates about the IP and the results, still the AFG will contact us, some of us, and either a licensing manager or a legal counsel of the PAC will support the discussion. So there is a very high chance that if you have a collaboration with the CHUV anyway, you will have a person from the PAC that will be concerned and will be like a negotiator. So if you have any other questions, this is the PAC team again from this year's celebration of the 10-year of the PAC. And we are based at the Biopole. The startup that I mentioned before, actually, they are based in 3 different spots here in the country, Park or at Vernon or at the Biopole. So we have startups that are spin-offs that are everywhere. So feel free to contact us. One more thing that I could mention to you, since you're coming from startups, is not concerning the collaboration with the CHUV, but tech transfer is actually an opportunity for startups. Because 90% of startup projects fail, like mine, I would say. But tech transfer is an opportunity because you could in the future work in this field. So if you have any question about tech transfer, what it matters, what it deals with, if you are interested in IP, just we can have a coffee by a phone and we will be happy to explain a bit to help in your future careers. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any question, I will be able to answer. Yes?
What is the criteria for the EIT to finance a project?
Basically, the CHUV, when there is a collaboration, it's a partner must have all the funding for pursuing the collaboration. So that will make sure that everything that is necessary for pursuing the collaboration, even for the transfer of the material, there are some expenses that they need to approve. So the researcher will have to submit all the project plan, say this is covered by this fund, some contribution from the external partners can begin to cover these expenses, and then that will give it. This is more or less.
And what do they like to see? What is like a?
That all the expenses are covered.
Okay.
That's basically what they have to do. Any questions? Maybe let's start one by that. Yeah.
Thanks. That's a principal question. The first, just to be clear about what kind of services or support we provide to non-CHUV or non-union employees.
I'm sorry to say that we are just dedicated to the CHUV and union researchers, so we don't provide any services to the external people.
So if I want to do partnership with the CHUV,
In that case, I mean, we are on the side of the CHUV researcher, and we negotiate in name of the CHUV researcher. So basically, I sorry to say, but we are your counterpart on the other side. So we are not supporting you. We are happy if the CHUV person researcher is collaborating with you, because we want actually, we are happy if there are some collaboration, but we defend the side of the CHUV. So.
Yeah. So all the grants and services we just shared about that is only related to people working at the CHUV.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Just two more questions. You talked about the workflow. What is the average duration of the workflow?
The average?
The average duration of the workflow.
It really depends. I mean, as I mentioned for the NDA, if you use our template, you don't modify it, you just sign it right away. For everything that concerns the research project, it really depends on the specification of the research project, the contribution of the marketing, and how much you are willing to leave, to give, how much we are willing. So the negotiations very often are about the intellectual property cost. But for the clinical studies, where actually there is a much longer process, because most often you need to have a clinical ethical approval of the clinical study, and it's outside this decision of the CHUV. There is a third party that is the ethical committee of the canton board. That's what we have started. So this takes normally very long to say, but it's outside also the possibility of the CHUV.
And my last question is the fact that, so you mentioned, if I was correctly, that clinical collaboration is on your side.
Yeah.
Clinical study on the legal team side, that you should. What's the difference between both? Between preclinical studies and clinical studies?
Preclinical that are outside the NRH, so the vascular that you know. And so everything that doesn't concern the patient directly. So even transfer of data, if there are patient data.
One question online.
Okay, I think there are two more there and the third here.
Question about what, with the startups that you support through the PAC?
Yeah.
And once they reach this stage of clinical trials, do they also get another layer of support from the?
I mean, depends, they get just one shot, basically. So you can get it at the very beginning, maybe in support of the clinical trial, if the clinical trial outperform the CHUV. So in that case, yes, you are in principle eligible, but it's really for early stage projects. So the company should not be incorporated yet. If you have already been incorporated, there are other helps like the Foundation for Innovation Technology Fit that provide like loans, very interesting, very interesting interest rates. and other type of helps, the future of that grant. There are many helps in the country for that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if at the time of the contract for the clinical trial, there are special rates that you would offer to an internal startup rather than to, Rush coming to do a study at CHUV or start from the UK coming to CHUV to do a study.
Yeah.
Is there something like that into consideration?
For example, internal spin-off, they have, they are the first in line for getting a license from technology that has been developed by the CHUV. So if there is an external partner from outside Switzerland or internal spin-off, the internal spin-off has a priority. And then, yeah, we need to discuss on the case by case. But in principle, we want to favor spin-offs from the canton and from the institution. So I would say yes, but we don't have a clear path, at least for the moment.
Maybe we
I
leave this for the Q&A part, yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know whether you have a lot of questions on the room side.
Just one, I think we can pick it for later.
Yeah.
It was partially answered.
Very quick one. Who needs to be the sponsor of whatever research and all of that? We need first to find a sponsor on the CHUV side, or we can contact you, find the NDA, and then you will guide us.
The main person for that is probably.
Two, three, one, or?
Well, it really depends on what you want. The responsibility is of course of the sponsor. If the CHUV is sponsor, then the contract will change to include all the data you get from your research in the contract. If you take the responsibility, which can be huge and it has a cost, you have to get an insurance, then the contract you make with the CHUV will change also in the way who do the data from the research belong to. So if you're the sponsor, most of data belong to you, but there's an exchange of data. If CHUV is the sponsor, they belong to the CHUV. So basically and simply, maybe too simply, this is the main difference.
Thank you, that's very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was already anticipating one of the next presentations, but before that, I would like to invite Professor Gotardo to the floor. He is the head of the Center for Biomedical Data Science, statistician by training, but with a passion for biomedical data that he is crunching with the technologies that he uses and develops to help us get insights and solutions in the medical field.
Great, thank you, Stefan. So, as you can see, I'm not an MD, no, I am on the corporate side, so I have to wear the blazer. What I wanted to tell you is, some of the work that we've been doing in trying to really leverage data science at the CHUV and establishing the data science center. And the goal obviously is to really accelerate the use of data internally, but also ideally, accelerate partnerships, which we see, as an important factor or mechanisms to really make a difference, for patients. So, since maybe some of you don't really know me, I thought I'll give you sort of a quick overview where I come from. So, born and raised in France, then I studied in the US to get my PhD in statistics, and then always really got interested into biology, which is why I actually went and got a degree in statistics, because I realized there's a lot of data and I really need to have sort of a deep understanding of some of the methods that were required to make sense of the data. And then I went on and moved further and further from, biology and then clinical studies. And then I got into sort of all these high throughput technologies, single cell, spatial omics. And now I do a lot of work personally for my research in sort of oncology, and what sort of precision human immunology, where we'll go very deep into human samples, understanding, the interaction between the immune system and the cancer cells in the context of cancer, and just sort of a immunity, autoimmunity, infectious disease, in other contexts. But obviously, I'm also heading a biomedical data science center, which means that I think a lot about the utilization of data in general, not just for my own research. This is actually a great example because it's not really something that I was working on before I joined the CHUV. And it's a perfect example of really sort of data-driven medicine. So this is actually a collaboration that we have with Michel Guilly in dermatology, where he came to us, and he's been sort of a referral center for like very hard to diagnose cases.
So basically, people are sent to the CHUV for second opinions. So this is actually a patient that had a history of psoriasis and so was treated for it, but did not respond. So you can see the skin lesion there, and it's there even after treatment, it didn't go away. And so what Michel does, instead of just looking at the lesion, visually, which most dermatologists would do, right? You go to the dermatologist and what do? They more or less just look at the skin, right? In rare cases, they might take sort of skin biopsy. And so in this case, this is actually what Michel does, is that he wants to really take a skin biopsy and go very deep. And so not just look at what I see, on the surface of the skin, but what is happening within this skin microenvironment. So we take a punch biopsy, and then we're going to look at the activity of all the genes in that sample. Of course, when you do that, you need to have a reference. So they sort of created that reference database where they have a lot of different cases of samples they looked at, healthy and different diseases. And so what you see in that heat map, basically the rows are the genes and the columns are actually the samples of the patients, right? And the one that we're looking at is this one here that's sort of dashed. And what you can see is basically that vector, that long vector across all the rows. So the activity of all the genes is sort of like the fingerprint that you're measuring for that specific patient. And then you compare it to your reference, and you're going to ask, does it look more like a patient who has that disease or that disease? Not only that, but then you can look at what are the activity or what are the fingerprints that we're looking at, right? So here we're really looking at inflammation of the skin, some sort of a immune reaction. And based on what we're seeing, we can sort of categorize them into, T helper 17, T helper 2, so different kinds of immune responses. And so for that patient, you're seeing actually looks a lot like someone who has more of a T helper 2 type response, which is something that we see more commonly in atopic dermatitis and not necessarily in psoriasis. And so it was thought that maybe that patient was, actually having a case of atopic dermatitis, which is interesting from the diagnostic point of view, but more importantly, you want to dampen that inflammation. So you're going to target the Th2 pathway, and therefore you're going to give a drug that will target what is actually causing the inflammation in the skin. And so if you do that, you actually clear the lesion. So this is the perfect example of really precision dermatology, where you use data and data-driven medicine, we push it into getting to the right treatment. We have actually a paper that will be published very recently on that. So of course, we all know that there's also, beyond just these sort of classical, what I would say, data science methods that we use, there's a revolution in AI, and I say it's coming, but it's come already. I think we all know this. On the left, we have the classic example in medicine of AlphaFold, right? So designing sort of, proteins and molecules de novo. And on the right, we have the tool that everyone's used, right? ChatGPT or GPT-4 applied to clinical notes and how that can help doctors. And so we really want to leverage these new techniques on the data that we have, whether it's internally, externally, through partnerships and so forth. So I'd like to give that as a reference too, right? So I think I read that recently that I think 30% of all the data that we collect in the world is actually health data, right? So there's a massive amount of data that is really coming from the human body, right? There's different sources. I mean, there's, wearables, but there's the more classical things like images, molecular data, like what I showed you in the precision dermatology example. And then we have all the clinical notes, the things that, the doctor might type, or the very standardized tests that you will get, like pressure, blood tests, and so on and so forth. Of course, what's challenging here is that, we have a huge amount of heterogeneity in these kinds of data. And we have a lot of data. I mean, if you think about, it's not unusual to have about, 10 terabytes per patient if you take into account all the images, CT scans, radiology, and so forth. And this is about 500 hours of HD video, right? So that's a lot of content. And so this was the motivation for, the CHUV leadership to say we have to invest in data science, and we have to really invest in people that will help us really leverage this data to the benefit of our patients. So this is basically what we've been working on. So I've joined about 3 years ago, with an N of 1, and now we are about 50 plus people. So we're pretty, I would say transversal. We work with a lot of different groups. We're, funded through grants, but also through basically funding through the CHUV and UNIL. The structure is such, I mean, we have, Jacques Fillet, who's actually mostly here at EPFL now and still has 20% of the CHUV. And now we have 2 new faculty members that are recruited since I joined. So Jean-Louis Rizao does a lot of clinical data science, clinical informatics. So really actually is working a lot and, for example, pushing Meditron and how we test that internally at the CHUV. And we have Mariana Rapsomaniki, who joined from IBM Research Zurich and does a lot of AI and ML for biomedicine, like in oncology, precision oncology and things like that. So I think we have that question about the data, right? So one of the things that we think a lot is data quality. So I always say everybody nowadays is using AI and everybody is doing the same thing. And if you think about a startup, you're probably sure maybe some of you, actually, how many of you sort of use data or AI or things like that in your startup? Raise your hand. Okay, so quite a few of you, right? And so it's good, but it shows that you're not the only one, right? So there's definitely competition in this space. And I would say I hear a lot of ideas and I wouldn't, I hate to say that, but a lot of the ideas are very similar. They're the same. So how do you really differentiate yourself is getting access to really high quality data. When it comes to training AI algorithms and making the best of, what you can do or the expertise you have in that field, you have to think about the data. Data quality is really, super important. And this is actually, to give you an example, something that we've set up at the CHUV. So again, this is a very specific example. I've talked a little bit about precision dermatology, but given my background, worked a lot in sort of precision oncology as well. And I said, well, if we want to move forward, we have to make sure that not only we have the best clinical data, but we generate the best sort of molecular data. So one of the ways that we wanted to push that is, for those of you who know, I talked to you about the gene expression, which is what we call a bulk measurement. So we're measuring each gene from that sample. But actually in that sample, there's a lot of cells. So we can look at, individual contributions of the cells within the sample, single cell technologies. And then if we look at, tissue, a tumor, or even a skin biopsy, we can actually look at the spatial arrangement of the cells within the tissue. So we use what we call sort of spatial biology or spatial transcriptomics. So this is one of these instruments that we acquired at the CHUV, which is called a Xenium instrument, which is manufactured by 10x Genomics, with whom we have a very good relationship. And so we built that infrastructure. We build it in a way where we go from getting access to sample, expertise, medical oncology, pathology, molecular biology, and of course, data science. And so an example of something that then we can do with these techniques, going to, our cohorts, right? So either we build prospective studies or retrospective studies by looking at the biobank, we can basically design studies like this, where ideally we're going to collect data at different time points or just at baseline, and we're going to try to predict a clinical endpoint. Survival, toxicity, whatever we want to do in the context of that study. And so we have the machinery to do that now. And thanks to that, we actually started that collaboration with Okin, which is a French AI company, and I'm sure many of you know them. They've worked a lot, and they're actually going really well now. They're even going in the drug development, and they're going to dose their first patient very soon. But anyway, we embarked on that partnership with them. So that's the perfect example of, we don't keep all the data for ourselves, but we set it up in a way that makes sense. So basically what we want is we want to collaborate with people, right? We want to make sure that when we do that, first of all, there's a protocol in place. We do it the proper way from the legal data protection point of view, but also from a research point of view. At the end of the day, we're scientists, right? And what we want to do is make sure that this will advance science, research, and therefore benefit our patients. So we actually done, one of the things we did at the beginning of that study is not just to say, okay, let's do that with you. We're going to work with you. We're going to give you the samples. We'll generate data. No, we actually had built a lot of expertise internally. So we have the technique to generate data. And so we said early on, actually, they had partnered with a company that was called NanoString. And we told them, well, what you picked as a technology might not be the best technology for what we want to do. However, we have a lot of expertise with better technologies we can help you with. And so we said, let's do a pilot study, right? We're going to generate some data and we'll show you that maybe what you want to do is not using the right technology. So we did this pilot study, and I'm not going to go into the details, but basically we showed them that this was better, more information, really more high information content, because we were getting, a lot more data points, high quality, reproducibility, and then they switched to 10x Genomics at that point. So this is an example of where we can really contribute, not just by, providing data samples, but really scientifically help you actually advance your project much faster, because we have the expertise on the clinical side, the scientific side, and the data science. And this is to give you an example. This is actually very old already, but we've collected close to 200 samples. I believe now we're closer to 400 samples from the CHUV side. Mosaic as a consortium has already surpassed 1,000 samples or patients, so it's growing really, really fast. So the other thing that might be of interest to you is, I told you that access to data is very important. So really, on one hand, we want to unlock data, right? So we want to make it accessible to all of you. But on the other hand, we have to be very careful about that, right? Because we're a public institution, these are patient data, we cannot just unlock data, even though you might say, well, this would be beautiful, right? Everybody has access to the data, we can do whatever we want with it. There are a lot of, ethical and legal issues with that. So we have to think a lot about that. How do we facilitate this? How can we make it easier for you all to work with us? And so with that in mind, we're actually working on a new infrastructure that will allow us to do that. So this is called CORS, this is in development. We're actually working extensively with folks at the EPFL, the SDAC, where we will really enable people internally and externally to have access to data in the right way. So the data will never move. You will come to the data through a platform, virtual desktop, where you can log in and you will do various things. Doesn't mean that everyone's going to have access to the data this way. It's just going to make it easier. It's just going to be faster, right? There will still be, research protocols that will need to be approved and things like that. But this will make it easier to do so. And our thinking is that there will be different layers. One where you can quickly query, do you have patients that receive this treatment, right? Within this age group, for example, right? Very basic characteristics where we do not, that stays anonymized if you want. And then we can quickly work with us and maybe identifying those patients, and then we can go through the more formal and usual route of, designing the protocols and research collaboration and so forth. This is to give you some of the features that I sort of mentioned, but really, the key thing is state-of-the-art security, access to data, but in a controlled fashion and something that's easy to use. So we want to make it very easy for people to come to the data, thinking about data security from the get-go. And our idea is that this platform will enable us to do more clinical science, education, research, and open science, and of course, collaboration, external collaboration. So this is all. I hope I got you a little bit excited about what we're doing, and I hope I sort of convince you that, it's not like we want to keep the data, but we have ways of working, with external partners, and we're totally open and we want to do that. Thank you.
Any top questions about clarifications? One more?
Sorry, once again, coming back to the data question. So the first slide was incredibly insightful, thank you. And are you open to external collaborators working specifically with you on the CORS platform? Or is this more of an internal thing?
No. We are actually exploring, external collaborations and things. So we have people who are, working with potential partners. So we're exploring that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Apart of cancer and genomics data, do you have other kind of data also, like EG or depression?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see cybersecurity as being a key aspect of what you do, data protection in particular. How do you envision the transition to quantum safe and in particular quantum resistant encryption?
It's not something.
We want clarification here.
This got clarified as a top priority by the G7 last week. That's why I'm saying it's mainstream now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's not something I would necessarily think about myself, but that's only something that as we embark on making sure we use the latest technologies, we'll have to go through that transition. So this will be driven by our partners and the technology we use, right? But certainly we'll have to look into that.
Well, you can talk more about that.
And potential collaboration also with CHUV and University of Geneva and CHUV, for example,
I mean, we're, anything's open. So, I mean, are you asking about specific ongoing collaborations or future collaborations? Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Are there any experience in generating synthetic communications?
Yeah, so I didn't talk about that, but we actually, so Jean-Louis Rizzo, who works with us, he has a huge program. Actually, he has, research projects on that. So synthetic data, how do we do that? Which will be another, thank you for asking, which will be another way that we can really open data to the public, right? Because we'll be able to do that. And our thinking is that what if we could sort of generate synthetic data that have the same property as the real data that we have, and make sure that people can use that. So we have actually doing projects on that.
It's getting very, very popular.
Yes.
Last week, happening to environmental conference in
Yeah.
Brussels. And big pharma, they are getting interested.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Then to move on to the last speaker, just in a way, the highlight for clinical trials, Professor Wilson, who is the scientific and research head of the clinical trial unit in Lausanne, and to present what you're doing for collaborations. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Grégoire Wilson. I'm very happy to be here with you. Said AI was everywhere. I tried to generate an image saying what is the partnership between a university hospital and a startup, and this was the image. So it's the future. It's the only one. It's the only slide I use AI for this talk, which will be very short. You will see. So the first word I wanted to say was about myself. So I'm a nephrologist. I did internal medicine, so I'm a medical doctor, but I was always interested since my thesis in clinical research. So I did not basic research. I always worked with patients, and I think they give you a lot of data also, which you have already seen before. So basically, I have two caps. It's the clinical side where I'm a nephrologist, and it's the research part. 30% is dedicated to the clinical trial unit, which I was head long before, and then I went back to clinical research and clinical everyday life. And then 2 years ago, Professor Odo said, we need a scientific and medical director at the CHUV. Will you help me? I said, okay, I can do what I will try to help. But now it's 20% in this CTU. So you are here and we are here just to see how we can do a partnership, and the possible strategy is also, of course, data. You have heard this before, but at the CHUV we have also clinical trial running where we partner with startups or pharmas, but basically also within the investigator at CHUV. We do this, we have to use, when we use patient, there's law. And on 1st November, also, it will change. The law, the Human Research Act has just changed. It started 10 years ago. It has added a lot of complexity in doing clinical trial research. And this is one of the reasons why the CTUs in Switzerland was set up. So basically, when we partnership, you can look at it, and I think I try to highlight in red what the CHUV can offer to startups. So what we knew, there was a white paper saying fundamental research in Switzerland is at the top-notch level, but clinical research is way down. So how can we improve the clinical research in Switzerland? So this was a national goal of the Swiss National Fund, and they created the Swiss Clinical Trial Organization. And you see that within the university hospital, they created the CTUs. Just to be different, we call it CRC in Lausanne. Don't ask me why, but it's also a CTU. And the idea was to work and make this clinical research more smoothly and efficiently. So CTU Lausanne, or Centre de Recherche Clinique in Lausanne, we have a dedicated website. You can go there too. But the mission is to basically first help the investigator of the CHUV conducting their clinical research. But it's also open for partnerships and to develop the academic research that we do at CHUV. But we have to do it, of course, providing that the regulatory stuff is clean. We have the logical stuff, the technical support to do studies in humans. So this is the organization, so it's lower than the first organization, but basically there's a directorate, and we have help, we give help for methodology and statistics, study management, data management, and clinical investigation. We have the facilities, I will show some of these. And all these subunits, they collaborate in Switzerland, so the question before, can you collaborate with CHUV? Of course, when you go into clinical trial, depending on the sample size you want to use, you have to collaborate with other university hospitals in Switzerland. And when it's some rare disease or big numbers, you also collaborate outside. So this is also important. So we have dedicated clinical facilities, 10 beds, 1 pre-analytical laboratory, a biobank, this is for the CHUV. The professional team is composed of medical doctors, nurses, clinical research associates, statistician, and data manager. Services, so we support the methodology, we provide insurance, quality plan, guarantee that data are good. We provide regulatory advice, we work with PAC, we work with the Affaires Juridiques, we provide data management with dedicated software for this, and then the medical and nursing support is also there when the patient or the healthy volunteer have to come to the facility, we are there for them, and then we provide study management to conduct the research. Because when you ask, you will try, if you partnership with an investigator at CHUV, to find your champion. And the difficulties, that's my hard definition, is to find dedicated time for research. So this is very important when you look for a collaboration to find the right person. And I hope it's at CHUV. How to get in contact with us? Very easy. So there's email, info, UCCR at CHUV. You can call or see, you'll find one person, and this person will redirect asking, you want the A to Z project, or do you want to pick something in the different service that we provide? Okay, so really, to sum up, the CTO is there for when you go from transition to preclinical studies to clinical studies. We are here to help and to put the things into practice. This is really our role in the CTU of Lausanne. So thank you very much.
So shall we take all the other questions?
Yeah,
I
maybe we
think-
can start with the one online, since
Sure.
other people can interact also over the sandwich.
Do you want us to come to the front or?
Yeah, I guess if there are questions for everyone, so. So I'll start with the first one, which was asking for spin-offs based in other universities, like for example, ETH. Is incorporation a prerequisite for CHUV partnerships, including funding opportunities, example, the one provided by PACT?
So as I mentioned before, we are financing just researchers that are based at UNIL and CHUV. If of course there is a researcher from ETH that wish to then be hired by the CHUV to perform a project at the CHUV, we may be eligible for this grant. But just in that condition, so it has to be somebody that works for CHUV that does this work.
But ETH has proper grants over there, so.
Of course, they cannot pursue like clinical trials and so on. So if that's the step that is missing, maybe it would be okay. There are people, for example, that comes from the EPFL who work for CHUV to do the clinical part of the development, and that we can basically finance without that.
Then we have 2 questions on course. So how will course affect the use of data inside larger data sets? Example, combining course-based data with other data sets. Secondly, do you envisage the first element of course with anonymized data to be available at all before partnership or even NDAs are complete to allow people to check if the data lies within forest patient cohort exists at first without actually seeing the data?
Yeah, so I answered the second question already more on this, right? So we will have, depending on the level of granularity on the data set, we'll have, way to query the data for cohort and things. Even beyond that, we will probably look at technologies that will allow us to, maybe anonymize like differential privacy and things like that.
But yes, that's the goal. One of the goals is to make it easier for people to come and say, okay, there's something that's interesting, so I'm not gonna waste my time, talking to people, signing an NDA and so on and so forth. And the first question was about combining CHUV data with other data sets. Yes, that's something we're thinking of as well. So ideally, there will be mechanisms for you to combine your own data, either through uploading the data or, other mechanisms, right? I mean, it kind of depends on the use case, I would say, but we're thinking about that as well.
And is there a way for people to explore, what's available in course? So they are asking specifically about movement data sets, like inertial motion tracking, optical motion capture, and also stroke-induced disabilities in the rehabilitation setting.
So I would say, yes, there will be a way to look at it. Do we have this data? I have no idea. So,
Okay.
But it was also already mentioned that there are several steps before you can use the data. First, you have to have the patient agreement.
yeah, but you could look at the aggregate levels. If
Yeah.
you have such data, right, without,
This is the first step,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so that would be the step number one. And then you're right, if you want to have access to the data, then there needs to be a protocol and so there's a process for that.
Yeah, and also there's the final level is when you have your project and when you want to reuse data, the final step is to go to the ethics committee. And so far they have been touchy about the synthetic data. It's ongoing business, I would say. But so the whole team is working to get to it to facilitate the research also. But it's a big step for them, I think, to go into this data. Yeah.
So last question for the chat, and then we move to the room. May we contact you as a company to help us on an industry innovation project where CHUV will be the implementation partner? Already an experience of such a montage.
So implementation partner, no, because it's basically we're doing things for free and we just don't have such resources. I mean, feel free to chime in, but that's.
Absolutely, no. I mean, the objective of the show is not to implement something and bring it to the market. We do all the previous steps for the clinical validation, but provide our research expertise, but no, we are not implementing.
That's it for the chat.
How do we do this?
Left to right, right to left.
So I'll kick it off with a tough question on regulatory. This Tuesday, some of us, Reggie and Stefan, you were there at the Future Health conference, and our very charismatic former president, Patrick Gebischer, who was asked, what is the problem with innovation that's remaining in Switzerland? And his answer was very clear. He said the problem is Swissmedic. And that is actually my experience as well. So I think that work that people like you have done to bring the clinical research centers up to a level that they were easier to interact with us, the entrepreneurs and the startups, has already quite obvious results at the CHUV and at the SRG. But on the startup side, wanting to run a sponsored study with you or with CHUV, the Swissmedic is, I would say, still a significant obstacle. They have severe delays unless you're working on cell and gene therapies where they have a new office for. Everything else is quite difficult. And so do you guys have this experience as well? Especially more of the question to you, Professor, is the experience that you guys are aligned and it's moving quite well now, but the startups seem to be stuck at the Swissmedic stage.
This stage is crucial for you. The experience I have is if I have to do it myself today, as I did it 20 years ago, no way I could go to Swissmedic. I need help and I need professionals that would help me in dedicated subjects. So you can go with devices or you can go with the drugs. This is completely different. So my advice for startup is to have a dedicated team to go to Swissmedic. And there are professionals that exist and they have to have experience, because the more experience you have, the faster it goes, because they know exactly what Swissmedics will pick for.
The two of us have the question.
So,
He asked.
the two questions in one,
Maybe just to follow up on this question.
Yeah.
Like, these days, how much time does it take when you get your design of your study to go through the ethical committee of the CHUV? So the first step, even maybe before Swiss Medic. So did you improve? Because I heard it takes 6 months to 9 months to go through these ethical committees when you have a design of a study to move on.
Well, the steps could be subdivided here. I mean, if you ask the CTU team and you have your project at the beginning to go to the ethics committee, it will take. There's the legal part that will be explored. Usually, I'll say that's roughly. You can correct me, but usually you have a response in 1 month. That's what you say, and then. Starting, it depends on the complexity and how far the project is advanced. If you have the whole in hand, or if you have to start just with the idea and you have to set up the methodological part. So this can take, can take up to 6 months if you start from scratch just with the idea. And then it can be, if you have the idea design and it's quite complete, then it's just a regulatory overview. Then in 1 month, it can be done. But it really depends also on the workload. If you want to give your startup a chance, I think the advice is use the facility as CHUV if you collaborate, but have your own regulatory affair that prepare. This goes much faster.
In any case, there's no unit on your side that is taking care of advising about regulatory stuff in general?
No. There's a dedicated team that looks at the record, or if you have the scientific part, we make up all the regulatory stuff to submit. Yeah.
In the frame of your
the CTU, that's one of the mission of to go for this. Yeah.
Sorry. No. Okay. Are you following?
Still.
She doesn't ask.
Sorry.
Yeah, I still have it's gonna be a quick question. I just wanted to branch out for a second because the whole presentation was focused on kind of like clinical innovation. And I'm just wondering, what's the CHUV's focus on sort of like other aspects around care delivery, right? From an innovation perspective, like access, how care is even being delivered within the CHUV. There are a vast, set of other things in terms of like, improving the patient experience. I'm just curious if that's part of the focus at all. And if so, is PAC the entry point, for example, or is a completely different team?
I mean, maybe for collaboration in this sense, so maybe.
But you can see at the clinical question, whether it's care or a clinical trial. When it's a clinical trial, you have to have a medical doctor within your team that conducts the trial. When it's with care, we have a care EUFRS, which is all dedicated to care and research, and which is led by nurses. But this is a different team. But the same question, regulatory question, design, statistics is also there. But it's with care. So design can be very different from a clinical question that is more medical.
Okay.
On the contractual side, yes, it will be the same as for the
Okay.
So either us or the AFG will.
Thank you.
I think it's gonna be short, but is there a service that should can help write an ethical committee proposal?
CTU.
And it's like a little bit side question. CHUV is only dealing with what's happening in hospitals, right? For studies or questions which are taken care by a family doctor or something like this. This is not something that CHUV is dealing with, right? There are different organizations.
This is more the ambulatory care, and it's more Unisante, which hosts the family care medicine department or unit who's dealing with that. But there are some units at the CHUV who have both a clinical hospital department and an ambulatory. Typically, our service of nephrology has in hospital and also outpatient. So it really depends on what is the research question and which kind of patient you have. So you can find both, I would say.
Thank you.
So in our case, we are past the Swiss medics approval and this, and we are interested in the feedback of the medical doctors. We are in the field of precision psychiatry. What would be my action items to get into contact and see if our solution can create value for the group?
So there are two aspects, the access and the other are the contracts. I answer on the contracts. There will be probably a consulting contract to be put in place with the doctor that you will find, and then they will explain you how to find. And that is the service of the other that I mentioned. So the contract will be put in place by the other unit.
But how would be their contract?
It's a consulting. They will interact with you as a consultant.
Okay, we hire them as a consultant.
No, you don't hire them. You just sign a contract. The person is still hired by the CHUV, and you pay the CHUV for this.
But it depends on the setup, right? I mean, there's different.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah,
most of the
if it's
time.
short, basically if it's short, usually it's that, right?
I mean, I think this is the official way, and then there is another way in which the doctor works as an external consultant, but that's a different thing. Like normally you should go.
But that's terrible for the CHUV. What I was getting at is there might be sort of longer term relationship which would be exposed to grants collaboration as well. It depends on the context, right?
Yeah, sure. And then for having access to the medical doctors, and
Really depends on the field. I mean, have to check who is competent in the field and has an interest to enter into a collaboration. Thank you. Right to Mr. Hans before.
I just want to share with you a current situation we have from the leadership and see how we can do the work together and address on that. So 8 months ago, so the interactive diabetes team of the CHUV called us saying, oh, we heard about your solution. There's a need for us. We really need to work together on that. And today we are still in the discussion of the partnership agreement between the interactive team and the legal team. So my question on that is how can we work all together to accelerate that situation? Because everything you presented for me it really resonates where you are an employee of the CHUV and you need with an idea and looking maybe to have a spin-off of it. But when you are an entrepreneur, waiting 8 months to have a partnership agreement, it's not possible for us. And more importantly, pay attention because we try to learn on the field, and maybe sometimes professional health teams say, why are not you waiting for us? And how can we work together to be able to stop that tension? Because we want to work with the CHUV. The doctor wants to work with us. But they say all the time, I'm sorry, it takes time, but you have to wait.
So if I understand correctly, so it takes too long for you, this is clear. And I think for your startup, and you have to be fast. So really the thing is, does your partner or your investigator does he have dedicated time? If you try to answer this question and you find no, then it's all about the budget. And because we have the possibility, if we have the budget, to dedicate people or medical doctors to research. If you don't have this time, then you will wait and you will be disappointed.
And that's my point, because when you work with field health team, I'm pretty sure they have the answer to the question, they don't have the time because they need to treat the patient.
Yeah, but it's possible to if you have the budget, and it's so difficult at the moment at CHUV to create one research to work. The only limitation, and I try to push to make it even easier, is to create a research job. When you have the budget, it should not be the budget of the CHUV. It should be the research budget that will help even if the partner is the CHUV, that will help the investigator to be put on your project and to help you to go forward.
And how can I find a budget for a research job without being an employee of the CHUV?
We can pay the shoe.
Yeah,
Pretty simple.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the point, because
Yeah.
I'm not medical, I'm not from the CHUV, but I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
And maybe thinking backwards,
Yeah.
the team that you connect with should come from them that said, okay, I partner with you, but I need 100% time of a medical doctor or nurse. But this is part of the budget you do. But this should come from the team. And if he says, I will do it in your budget, and he has no time, then you're likely to be disappointed because this dedicated time, the law says it. If you choose an investigator, he has to have time in your study so that it's legal. So the law says that you have this dedicated time, but you have to create this time and you have the money for it. That's the, yeah.
I will just make that for the other people. The answer we get was the first step was to have a signed partnership agreement to be able to take time with you to see how we can work together. Without that signed agreement, we can't take time to discuss with you.
But just to follow up on that, I mean, I'm gonna, talk from, speaking personal experience. When because we get a lot of people who come and talk to us, and you wanna do this, you wanna do that, right? So we kind of have to prioritize what's important. So sure, no disrespect to my colleague, but we're not the fastest on some things sometimes, because there's lots of, legal things that needs to be done, so there's a priority and there's a stack of things. One way things will work faster is that if there's, a huge carrot that says, look, this is very important, we need to make it advance, because whoever you're talking to at the CHUV is super interested in investing in the project. And one way to get there is to make sure they have resources so that the person is going to be fully invested. Because if it's just, and I don't know what you're doing, but here's a product, can you test it for me? They might say, oh yeah, it's interesting. But they don't really have the time and resources, right? Or really the personal investment to push it forward. So maybe that's one way to do that, is making sure that there's a good relationship and maybe a solid contract with resources, and then that becomes a higher priority.
These partnerships with Unisanté, is it you that manage and the legal part, etc., or there is another entity?
Unisanté is a different entity, so that's.
One last question about clinical trials and partnerships. Do you also work with CROs between the sponsor and the principal investigator? Or normally you don't do that? Because from the slides you showed, it looks like it's really back-to-back relationship that you try to establish with the sponsor.
The CTU is kind of CRO within the CHUV.
Okay.
But some partners or some collaboration have an external CRO.
That they bring in.
Yeah, and sometimes you need one part to do all the legal stuff. Regular CRO takes that up.
Yeah.
And then you need maybe a facility at
or special.
So both are we have CRO coming to the CTU and checking.
But it's always the startup bringing in the chosen CRO.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of portfolio when you choose.
Do you have a portfolio to propose?
Yeah, it's basically what we offer, what do you want to choose in this, and this is what we can offer, and if we can't offer, propose to go to see outside and see real professionals there. They are basically, we have in common with the other CTUs in Switzerland, we have a paying policy, which is about the same, which is a flat rate in Switzerland, just small differences. When you go to CRO, of course, it would be much higher, but because our first intention is to help the investigators of the university and the academic, but it's often with a partnership.
Okay, thanks.
So then to remind, typically, what is the cost of the internal CRO of the CHUV, like the management of the study per patient? What is the typical range?
When you go on the site, for example, CTUs, and I guess the other CTUs have it also, depending on which you choose, it's an hourly rate whether you use a research associate, a medical doctor, a nurse, where you need a bed, and this is all, when you look at it, you say that there's a fee per hour where you pay, and then we make the budget together. And then there's also the DAD, how do you say it who looks at it, to say, okay, the financial department, so we make a budget together, and it's validated by the financial department.
Sure, but for the last, let's say, 5 years, what would be the average? Because when we plan, I don't have time to spend with you and waste your time for 1 month to determine if it would cost 1,500 per patient or 2,000. What is the range? Because in the US, the ranges from the US. So is it like 5,000 per patient on average from a study for the services of full CHUV service? Just, are we talking 1, 10 or 100? The range.
No, it's more in thousand per patient, I guess, but I can do, if you're interested, you can write me a mail. I think those figures are there, but it's from 1,000 to 5,000.
Okay.
It costs per patient, so depending what kind of study, but it can be for a phase 1 trial, of course, if it's very risky, it can be 5,000, even more, but it can go for exploratory or epidemiological study, it can go down to 100 francs. So it really depends on the kind of study you do. Yeah.
Well, already for Stefan, do you have a clarity about your focus area in the innovation office? I can imagine you can not bet everywhere. And then it would help a little bit to do a triage of solicited offers or offers that we can have externally to contact you. Do you have just a picture of the key focus area where you want to have excellence actually?
We don't have it in an explicit way. It's a huge organization, and I think we really treat it on a case-to-case basis.
Okay, for the moment, it's like that.
And maybe also if I can add, I mean, it really depends because usually depending on the innovation, what you're doing,
Right.
you want an internal partner, right? And it's very hard for us without having the expertise to gauge, if they will be really interested from, the CHUV side. And so we need to talk to someone and then they will tell us, right?
Yeah, I think you know your ground actually and your expertise areas. But
Well, we have a lot of expertise, so
you have,
yeah.
you can have a good understanding of where you may have the best in terms of production of science, etc. But because I was thinking also about the tension fund that you may have because you have, if I well understood, some startups or spin-off coming from your medical doctors, and you have some Thomas founded a startup, and I guess what would be the balance between external startups coming to you and internal ones? And are you willing to deal with a variety or balance between internal and external?
I don't think there is really a conflict. If you have the budget in the study, and one of the medical doctors is very interested in your solution, because he believes that they can bring something to his patients or their patients. There is no limitation. And there is not like, we don't prioritize, yes, I said that we want to favor our internal spin-out, but normally you're not working exactly in the same field, so it's up to you to find the right doctor with the right need. And then if you manage to make him or her very interested in your project and you have the funding, I think perhaps it will be the collaboration.
Yeah. If you look at the strategic plan of the CHUV, you will have 1, 2, 3. These are the areas where we want to focus, but it's not limited to that. We just said there are researchers. Maybe it's one researcher, but the key researcher for you, and he will be, and the CHUV will be willing to help. So we cannot limit to the pole d'intérêt.
So in our case, we have an agreement with the CHUV that is led by InnoSwiss with an upcoming study next year. We, in a discussion and negotiation with the fact, we left everything about commercialization for the future. Like at the end, we will discuss who owns what and how to incentivize the CHUV and the PI. And I wanted to know a little bit how other companies or in general, what is a typical range of compensation that the PI gets?
He's gonna tell you everything.
That's really, depends on the project, on the specific project, we don't have a range for that. Most often, companies prefer to negotiate before, actually study, because they want to know where they go, they have some requests from their investors. In your case, it was decided to do it after, for sure, if you decide like bring the negotiation at the end of the project, it's much easier. Because you can say, well, let's see what happens, and then, but most of the companies don't agree with that, they want to agree before, and that's what brings the time, like the timeline much longer, because we need really to agree on the details of something. Ever bring something, so I prefer your way, let's say, and I think it's the most reasonable one, and that is much faster, of course. But if you want to know already today for a result that you don't know if it ever will be there and which are the contribution in the future of every party, it's so much more complex, right? You have really to project the project in the far future and see what will actually be the contribution of each, so it's much more complex.
But we don't have any idea of what will come out, so
Yeah.
my question is, would you be able to share a little bit?
The range,
The
no,
range,
I mean, it
no.
really depends on the project, like, it depends on the contribution of the CHUV to the project, yeah. And that cannot be determined, it's specific to the project.
So would you say, is there a different procedure for joining, for example, an existing collaboration or project that's already happening within CHUV versus approaching CHUV and trying to start your own collaboration project? What are really the major differences?
Well, on the clinical side, I guess
I find it very hard to answer.
I think it depends on
Yeah.
If it's a collaboration between the CHUV and the pharma company, they will probably not be very open to a third party coming in. It really depends on the case that you're looking at. If it's something between CHUV and EPFL and you come in with something that could add value to the project, I think there's an openness to bring in more partners. It really depends.
From experience, if you start a new project with a partner, the first experience is good, then it goes on and can continue. If the first experience is not good, usually you go to another partner, which is normal. Yeah.
Are we done time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any last burning questions? I think we've treated a lot so far. Doesn't seem to be the case. The chat is
No, the
also
chat is quiet.
quiet.
So I
Okay.
think if
Lunchtime.
we can have sandwiches and still interact, you know, if you want.
Thanks again to you and